All right, we're live. All right, guys. Thank you for hopping on and viewing this today. Nick and I are going to talk about repricing today. So, repricing is something that him and I have both toyed with and experimented with and learned a lot of different good and bad things that we've done, and we want to kind of share two things specifically today on repricing and how maybe you can not make the same mistakes that we did coming up and when you're growing your business. And we're going to talk about two things. One, how complex or how simple you should make it. And then two, like the different strategies that we use and when we switch in between those two strategies. So Nick, I'll let you kind of start on your thoughts about like kind of how you set up your repricer and then how complex or how simple you make it. And then I'll add kind of my thoughts on what I do with mine.
Okay. Yeah. So I think the first thing is, just realizing that just about everybody should have a repricer. I couldn't imagine trying to make it without one. You could take up a lot of your time changing prices, and if you're manually changing prices against someone who has a repricer, then it's like it just doesn't even, it makes even less of sense, right? Because now
Right.
that computer is just going to beat you up. I think you have to take a look at your numbers, and if you can afford a repricer, which they're really not that expensive, that's one of those things that you should definitely go ahead and get. In the beginning, you definitely want to keep it simple or take advice from someone who has set up some strategies and has some skin in the game and knows what they're talking about. When I first started, I tried to think of all these situations that I hadn't really encountered yet. And I tried to create a bunch of strategies around those what if situations.
Right.
And it was difficult. It was just, it was just me overthinking things way too much. And it definitely halted some of my progress there. I think one of the first strategies I set up was just like a get the buy box strategy. So just kind of more, actually, no, the first strategies I set up were less aggressive. I was, plus a penny, plus, 3 to 5% over a merchant fulfilled seller if I'm FBA. And those are good places to start, plus a penny, match the buy box. Those are good places to start. I think for a lot of us, as we grow and get bigger, we become more aggressive in our pricing. That's been my experience personally, and also my experience talking to other sellers. I know when I first started, I was a penny pincher. It was stupid. For a long time, I was like, oh, I'm just going to price above the buy box. But I just found myself getting smoked in too many cases. And it's just so different, different listings, different competition. Is Amazon on it? How many competitive sellers are there? What's the rank? Like all these different things, to where pricing above the buy box just didn't get the result I wanted to anymore. And, prices were still tanking. And, here I am thinking I'm Mr. Smart Guy with the, being plus a penny, but, I'm just holding inventory. So but it all depends, right? Like if something's selling fast, you want to move it and get your money into something else. Are there situations where I'm not aggressive on pricing? Of course, but that's because I look at it and it just makes sense, right? Like as you go in this repricing journey, I guess you're going to look at stuff and you're just going to be like, oh, I need to do this, or, oh, I need to do that. Like things are just going to make sense pretty easily, I think, when you're staring it, right in the face.
Yeah.
But what I've come up with as kind of like a default is every supplier gets the same three strategies for us. We always have a get the buy box, match the buy box, and raise the buy box. So if I'm selling product from a supplier and I think I can raise the buy box because of the competition and what the competition has been doing, then I'll use that. You know, that's our least used strategy.
Yep.
Raising the buy box. Our middle of the road strategy is definitely matching the buy box. And then a lot of cases we use a get the buy box, which is going to be pretty aggressive on getting in the buy box and staying in the buy box. A lot of repricers, they're even going to ask you, what do you want us to do when you're in the buy box? You know, do you want us to lower the price, raise the price, do nothing?
Right.
They give you a whole lot of options. I think ours right now is set to raise and lower the price while it's in the buy box, which honestly, like, I don't even know how the hell all that works. You know, like, when are you going to raise it? When are you going to lower it? You know, like, you can't do it at the same time. So,
right.
You know, I think a lot of it, you're kind of splitting hairs. And I think, you know, you can do some pretty cool things with repricing, especially when you get an item that's ranked really well and selling super fast. You can really see how pricing it affects your sales. So I think for everyone getting started, just having those three strategies in mind of matching, raising, and getting the buy box are good places to start. And you can set those up just by having your get the buy box. It can be an algorithm depending on the provider you're using, or you can simply just make it minus a penny
right.
over the buy box. Matching the buy box is simple. You just, you know, set it to match the buy box. If you want to raise the buy box, you know, you can make it plus a penny. If you're FBA and you're competing against merchant fulfilled sellers, and our strategies will price anywhere from 3 to 5% above the merchant fulfilled seller.
That makes sense.
And then we have one strategy that we use for everything that's like over 90 days. And what do I call that one? I think we call that one, I forget what I call that strategy. But yeah, anything that's over 90 days that, you know, wasn't intended to be in our inventory for longer than 90 days. I think we call it excess inventory.
Okay.
Yeah. Excess inventory strategy. And those ones are a little harder to set up because a lot of repricers don't let you create a listing where you won't be profitable. But if an item doesn't sell when I want it to sell, then I'll take a loss on it to get the money back.
Yeah.
And get it into something else. So I think, you know, for us, that's pretty much the main strategy for us is, you know, every supplier has those three strategies. The minimum price and the max price is very important. I think that's where a lot of people mess up on repricing. It's kind of funny. You have like this whole group of people who think repricers are terrible, but it's because they don't put in a minimum price.
They don't understand. Yeah.
And their price just goes all the way down, and they think it's the repricer's fault, but it wasn't.
Yeah. That was one of the things I was going to say is I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls of a repricer, that if you set it up wrong, yeah, you can lose money.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's really simple to avoid those things. Like, is your cost accurate? And then, you know, do you have, you know, if your cost is accurate, like you said, a lot of those reprices aren't going to allow you to lose money.
Right.
So as long as you've got that set up and in there, your cost, then it should, you know, it should price off of that. So
yeah.
So it sounds like you keep yours, I mean, pretty simple too. I mean, somebody maybe listening to it may think it's complex because that's not your business. It's not their business, but you understand it.
Yeah.
And like, you can give that to your team, right?
Yeah.
And they can understand. I think that's the biggest thing is as you grow, you need to have a system that other people understand, than
Yeah.
you, because you can't be the one that's messing with the repricer all the time.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And then, we still, like my team, I have them go through the repricer and make changes as necessary. And, the best way to do that is to get comfortable using the spreadsheet so you can import and export and make changes in bulk and things like that. And do other calculations for your repricing. Because it's definitely a powerful tool. It's definitely something you want to take advantage of.
yeah, for sure. For sure. So
And then pay attention to what they're doing. Like I used to really like App Eagle. It got changed to Informed.
mm-hmm.
And that's who I used for the longest time. And they were good, but their price, I bailed on them because my credit card, like the date expired, and they wouldn't let me on my original plan that I got grandfathered into. They wanted like a lot more money. So
Yeah.
I just chose not to go with them anymore. But you could see everything it was doing, and their customer service was good. And you could see why prices were being changed. So you could actually see, how your strategies and your rules were performing and why they were performing that way, which is
right.
what I really like. But it's important to stay on top of the repricers. Like every day, if you're selling a lot of product, somebody should at least be checking that repricer every day to make sure, things are operating normally, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of times, like I'm kind of the same way you are with how I run mine. Like I don't have necessarily like the 3 set up, but I've got like a default profit margin that I accept. And then I've got like a higher profit margin one that I use. And then I have like a break even or like get rid of inventory one. So
Yeah.
kind of like you were saying, like I've got one that basically is to get the buy box, which is the default one. And then I've got the high profit one, which is maybe it's just a high profit item and I'm only willing to accept a certain amount, or it's like you said, something I'm willing to hold on to for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the same thing you have. And then of course, like the excess inventory type one where we need to get rid of stuff. So I've got it set up pretty similarly. So yeah, I think that's the main thing is just like, as somebody that's new or even somebody that's maybe experienced and they're like, why is this taking up so much of my time, is maybe you just have it a little bit too complex, or because the point of the repricer is that it creates less work for you. And if you
Right.
are having to go in there and like you have 100 listings and you have to assign, okay, which of these 16 different strategies do I assign them to?
Yeah.
You're going to lose your mind. So
Yeah. Then the key there is like every time we ship a batch, the repricing strategies get updated if they're like as soon as it shows up in the repricer, I think like 24 hours later or something like that, we have someone just process and update, just by importing, exporting, export from the repricer, run a filter to identify, the products we want to change, update the strategy, and just import it back in there.
yeah.
Probably takes 3 minutes to do. So it's just adding that extra process into your, it's kind of part of like our shipping now,
Right.
Do we have new products going in that haven't been listed before? Okay, we need to assign a strategy to those. So
Yep. And then to add, I guess, a little bit, one other thing that people may think about is, like I do have an extra one that I use for anything that's under $20, just because the profit margin on that can get pretty slim. So like
yeah,
a 10% profit margin on something that sells for $100 is a lot different than something that sells for like $10 or
yeah,
15, and a lot of people don't even sell stuff for under $15, but I do have some things that are good. And for that, we set ours up a little bit different where we do, we only accept like a certain, not a percentage, but we only like accept, okay, you're going to make $1.50 or more in this item. So that's another thing to think about, because that's one thing that I ran into as I was scaling, is I had this very simple process, but I noticed I was making like 40 cents or something on, something was selling for $15. It's like, well, this isn't making sense.
Right.
So that's just another little thing to think about. What about, Go ahead, Nick.
I think when I was drop shipping, I think I had strategies set up in price ranges. And we sold stuff, all the way from $20 to like $1,000. So, we had 10 or 12 or 15 different strategies just for prices.
Right. So we kind of talked about how to make it simple versus complex, and then like when to change strategies. What about like some of the biggest mistakes or that you see people make? I'll talk a little, like we talked about, the price tanking a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things that people either are scared about with the Repricer. It's like you have this powerful tool, but you don't know how to harness it. And I don't know if you want to add a little bit of commentary to that, or.
Yeah, I think if that's what you're concerned about, then, instead of checking your price every day, check the Repricer every day. And, see what the Repricer is doing and make changes there. You're going to get better results making a strategy change or a min and a max change compared to just changing your price, and then you walk away and now nothing's happening, right? Like you just changed your price one time compared to changing your strategy that's now going to work for you until you change it again.
Yeah.
So, if that's your concern, a lot of them have trials. Sign up for the trial, take advantage of that, and just check it every day. Check it twice a day, until you get comfortable with how it's working. After a week or so, you're going to get the hang of it. So I think if that's your concern, then, just check the Repricer each day. And
and that's a good point, because when I first started using one, looking back, I think I did make a lot of mistakes, and I probably did lose maybe even more money than I would have if I was repricing it manually myself. But it's one of those things, like now it's like such a vital part of my business that I'm glad I went through that maybe little period where I didn't know what I was doing. I lost a little bit of money, because now we had 4,000 SKUs at one point, a few months ago when we were doing drop shipping and retail arbitrage. And it's like, there's no way to manage it all. Another thing I really liked that you talked about was, you say you're getting killed on like listings that were tanking. And that was something that I wanted to cover too, is like, and this is kind of a bigger thing than repricing, is just having an acceptable profit amount that you're going to accept on an item, and letting your repricer take care of that for you. Because sometimes you get tied to an item and you're like, you buy it, maybe you're like, I'm going to make $10 on this item. And then you send it in and you see, oh, maybe I can make actually 15 or 20, and then you change your repricer and you do these things and you're like, I'm not going to accept anything less than 15 or anything less than 20. When you bought it, you're like, I'm totally acceptable making $10 on this item, and that's, you got to allow the repricer to take the emotion out of it for you.
I think with arbitrage, you've got to be okay with, I realized, hey, if I scan an item and it says I'm going to make $20 and I actually make $20, then I consider that an optimal result, right? Because most of the time when you scan something, you're not going to make what you see on there. You might make more, you might. But the majority of the time you're going to make less. And, I think with arbitrage, it's all about making money as fast as possible. And then taking those profits and putting it into things that are going to give you long-term returns. because arbitrage, it's always going to be a hustle. You know, you've always got to be finding new product and selling it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Because you can get lulled in, like you're saying, sometimes you do make what you think or more, and you can't let those instances like detract or give you a false sense of security on like the big picture, where like you're saying, you scan it, you're going to make 20, but in reality, when you send it in, like there's a bunch of other people around the country that probably found that same item. So you might make 15 or 10.
Yeah.
So that's a really good point.
So yeah, I had to stop trying to squeeze money out of products.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I made that mistake for a long time.
Yeah. So
sometimes it happens sometimes, like with a purchase I recently made. I was trying to squeeze some money out of it, but it was ranked really well and I had a lot left and everybody else's inventory was going down. So the situation called for it.
Yeah, that's really the only time you can do it, is like on a very, very hot selling item, when you just know, like, hey, tomorrow or the next day, these people are going to run out of stock. But
yeah, I think with repricing, you've kind of got to have these defaults, but then you have to be prepared to make other decisions based on what's going on on the marketplace.
Right. Well, good. Anything else you want to add to repricing before we close it up?
I guess people would probably want to know, repricers that we recommend or something like that.
Okay. Yep.
I've used Informed. It was good, but it's too expensive. Go Aura is doing okay. There are some things I don't like about it. It doesn't update as fast as I'd want it to. But I got in at a good price. So I'm happy with it. I hear people talk about Channel Max, Repricer Express. There's another one that's even more expensive than Informed, and I know some people that use it really well. And I've looked at some Keepa graphs of their products, and I'm like, wow, but it was like a discontinued product. So of course, competition's getting less and less, the price is going up. But the Repricer, seemed to have caught that on its own, which was cool.
That is cool.
But yeah, you really just want Be Cool is another one that I've used.
Yeah.
And then Amazon has their own Repricer. When we started, Amazon didn't have a Repricer.
Yeah.
So I do, if you're new to repricing and you haven't chosen someone yet, those are some of the most common names you'll see people talk about. I think you're pretty much good with any one of them. It's all about the interface, the customer service, how fast do they reprice, and then just accuracy, and how can you get your cost of goods added in there?
Yeah.
You want that process to be easy. Also, we use the Inventory Labs and Go Aura integration. So luckily we don't have to update costs of goods manually.
Yeah.
So that's a nice feature. But even if you do, it's not that hard. Like, you should already have all your COGS in a sheet somewhere, right? So even if it's not integrated, as long as you have those costs somewhere and it's tied to a SKU, that's you'll want to make sure it's tied to an SKU, not the ASIN, because most repricers will need the SKU. So as long as you have that SKU and your cost of goods, you should be able to easily work with any repricer, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion, man. I use Inform myself, and I'm kind of grandfathered into that cost that you were saying. So until
Make sure your credit card doesn't expire.
I know. So until I screw that up, that's what I'll be using. But I think they're all good, and it's all kind of a personal preference. You could say that, Aura's like the go-to and there's no other one, and then someone else could get on here and say that they hate Aura and they should use someone else. So I think what you're saying is 100% spot on, man. So Well, cool. Well, thanks everybody for listening. And yeah, hopefully you guys picked up some stuff on repricing. And if we missed anything, if you have any other questions,
Yeah, let us know.
ask us. So.